There are Messianic Jews, but other than that, she's completely wrong and super offensive.
I like how you get so upset on how casual this chick takes Judaism and Jewish beliefs, but is so dismissive of those who are Messianic Jews and call them nonsense. Kettle meet pot.
Could someone explain the problem with Messianic Jews? I always took it as a term to refer to Jewish people who converted.
Jews for Jesus. Well, they're called Messianic Jews.
Yeah, they do Jewish ceremonies and consider themselves Jews. I could get someone thinking they're Jews. It's the same with like progressive Christians, where Christians don't consider them a denomination, but they consider themselves as one. This is in no way of attacking you, by the way.
Why do people gatekeep philosophies and ideals? Like, I get Trisha was being super weird and racist, but if she's a Messianic Jew, how is it up to you to call it stupid and not true when all religions are that?
Me, a Messianic Christian who observed Jewish holidays, feasts, and laws. Ethan, you can't sit on the fence with this one.
Today, we're going to be talking about Messianic Jews, or as I like to call them, spicy Christians.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Spoilers. As usual, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Sam. Today's topic, we'll acknowledge, is somewhat controversial. It shouldn't be, but it's stuff like this and Trisha Paytas that keeps our channel going. Say hello to the cat.
Oh, Pippin making his screen debut in an anti-Semitism video. This is gonna be a deep dive, people.
30 pages. I wrote 30 pages of this script.
And we're all very grateful. We know what you've done for us. We're going into the history of the Messianic movement, Jewish and Christian theology, and discussing the harm that Messianism causes to real Jews.
For simplicity's sake, we'll be referring to the movement as Messianism, as opposed to Messianic Judaism, since Messianic Judaism is a misnomer and a paradox to the highest possible degree, but we also want to separate it from mainstream Christianity because it has its own distinct practices.
Also, Messianic Judaism is quite a mouthful.
Yeah.
Right. So we all recognize that many of these questions and comments come from a place of good faith, and we don't think it's malicious. We want to acknowledge that, and that's why I wanted to make this video in the first place.
So let's begin with our first point.
Messianic Jews are Christian.
Messianism is a sect of Christianity. Their beliefs and practices are closest to evangelical Christianity. And like evangelical Christians, they appropriate Jewish rituals and use them in their worship to their Messiah, Jesus. Messianics believe that the Tanakh and the New Testament are the authoritative scriptures. Salvation is only possible through Jesus, of course. And Jewish laws don't contribute to salvation. Take a shot every time you say Messianic or Jesus.
Don't, you'll die. Messianism is accepted by evangelical Christianity as a legitimate form of practice, but not by any major Jewish sect. And there's a lot that Jews don't agree on. There's more that we don't agree on than we do, let's be real. But we all do agree that believing in Jesus makes you a Christian.
Totally. Also, there's no real scriptural basis for Messianic practices. It's a fairly recent movement, and while the first Christians were certainly Jewish in many ways, after about a century, the two were distinct religions, with early Christians doing their best to distance themselves from Judaism as much as possible. But the modern day Messianic movement didn't start until the 1960s.
While a movement of Hebrew Christians did exist in the 19th and 20th centuries, they were mainly made of people with Jewish heritage who converted, willingly or not, to Christianity and practiced in their own church. It is possible many practiced Judaism in secret and were only Christian publicly, like the crypto Jews of Spain. But it is still important to distinguish that they had been Jews at some point. That makes the situation different.
But today, only about half of Messianics have Jewish heritage. And just having Jewish heritage is not enough to make one Jewish. One can convert to Judaism without Jewish heritage, and that's valid. And there are plenty of people with Jewish heritage who don't practice Judaism, either religiously or culturally. But if both of your parents practice Christianity and you practice that same religion, even if one does have some kind of Jewish background, guess what? You're Christian.
Jews for Jesus is a branch of Messianism that started in 1973 by a Jewish convert to Christianity. It was created for the express purpose of converting Jews to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior.
which is like particularly evil. Like, this organization was created to trick people of Jewish heritage who were disconnected from their religion and didn't know a lot about it into believing this was a legitimate Jewish movement.
A lot of people today still believe that Messianism and Jews for Jesus is an appropriate expression of Judaism.
Which they're not, like, at all.
Nope. You might say, where's the harm? Can't we just leave them alone or even accept them as one of us?
And the harm is simple. Christians and the Christian church have persecuted Jews for literal centuries for not worshiping Jesus, for not converting, and then Messianism comes along and is like, hey, you can keep your Jewish practices, but also, like, worship this dude that people have been using to persecute you for centuries, and, like, we'll accept you and stuff.
That's a mighty nice Passover you got there.
What?
It's like they're trying to take it, they're trying to buy it off us. That's a mighty nice Passover you got over there. How much you want for it?
It's insulting.
It's like, dude.
You're still asking us to give up our religions and beliefs. A huge part of modern day Judaism is the fact that Jesus isn't part of our religion. Messianism being accepted is just another way of telling Jews we're responsible for our own persecution, since we won't practice a more acceptable form of worship.
Messianism only disconnects people further from Judaism, because the ideologies and theologies of the religions are completely different. They're designed to bring people closer to Jesus, not closer to Judaism.
And Jews for Jesus receives most of its funding, if not all, from evangelical charities. The Messianic sect as a whole doesn't have a leader like the Catholics. But it wouldn't surprise me if the whole Messianic movement received benefits from evangelical churches. I'm actually pretty sure they do.
Yeah. Considering the relationship Judaism has with evangelicalism as a whole, which is tenuous at best, that makes Messianism even less chill.
And, evangelicals are Protestant, but, like, we wouldn't be cool if Messianism was Judaism and Catholicism combined. In fact, there are many reasons why I'd see that as an even bigger issue. But, like, the main reason Messianics aren't accepted by the Jewish community, once again, is because Jesus.
Yes, just Jesus across the board. Jesus all the way down. The acceptance of Jesus is what is sometimes referred to as the final taboo in Judaism. A lot of Jews assimilate somewhat or a lot in society, and we've been doing that since biblical times, but there are some taboos that won't be broken.
It's only recently that Jewish people have started accepting tattoos. A lot of Jews still grow up believing that you can't get buried in a Jewish cemetery if you have a tattoo, which actually isn't true, at least not anymore. But even eating pork, mixing meat or milk, or just not keeping kosher in general is considered okay in some sects of Judaism.
But none, zero zip nada, except Jesus. We'll get into why exactly, but it's basically keeping kosher, keeping Shabbat, not getting tattoos. They're not necessarily things you need to do in order to be Jewish. After all, Judaism is as much ethnicity as it is a religion.
Like, my family didn't keep kosher growing up, and neither of my parents grew up keeping kosher. We kept, like, kosher-ish. Like, we never ate pork unless it was in Chinese food.
Which everyone agrees doesn't count.
But for many reasons, we Jews see the dividing line of Judaism and Christianity to be Jesus. My God, we are bringing up that point a lot. This is very repetitive.
This is, you could basically summarize the entire video of, you're not Jewish if you believe in Jesus. Have a nice day.
And while Messianism may seem like the perfect way for interfaith couples to practice both of their religions, the truth is different. In many Jewish Christian interfaith households, the religions are celebrated as their own thing. And usually one religion will have priority over another. And the children of those couples should be given full context for both of their religions so they can choose how they want to practice it later in life. A child of an interfaith couple who wants to practice Judaism and who has a Jewish parent is Jewish.
Judaism and Christianity are two completely different religions. It makes no sense to combine two religions in this way. Christianity might have descended from Judaism, but the two evolved divergently to the point where they're completely separate, and they have completely different ideologies and completely different theologies. Here and here.
Our-
Oil, water.
Our texts are also completely different. Sure, the Torah forms the basis of the Christian Old Testament, but even then there are huge differences between the texts.
The Tanakh contains the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and the book of prophets and the book of writings. The Torah order is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
And in Judaism, the Torah is considered a sort of history of the Jewish people. It has some lessons and teaching, and in modern day, within most sects of Judaism, it's taught that the Torah had multiple authors over the centuries. Though many Orthodox synagogues and some conservatives synagogues will teach that the Torah was written mostly by Moses.
While the Torah stops at Moses' death, the Christian Old Testament includes the history of the Israelites, along with the wisdom books, the stories of the prophets. The Catholic canon has 46 books, and the Protestant has 39. The books that are part of the Old Testament, but not the Hebrew canon, are sometimes described as deuterocanonical.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay, yeah.
Who cares, though?
There are some differences in order of the books, depending on the sect of Christianity, because why not? We won't go into that. And of course, Christianity has the New Testament, which doesn't exist in Judaism.
And very early in Christian history, the idea of supersessionism came about. What Christian supersessionism, or also known as replacement theory, taught is that with the coming of Jesus, Christians replaced Jews as the chosen people. Some Christians may believe now that Jews are still the chosen people, others don't. Frankly, who really cares? I don't get it.
We don't care. This also means that the New Covenant replaces the Mosaic Covenant. It's basically why Christians don't keep kosher, celebrate the Sabbath on Sundays, and don't hold the laws of the Torah. The New Testament has replaced it.
And it's why you don't see Christians celebrating things like Passover, Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Kippur.
These holidays represent the Mosaic Covenant with God that only Jews keep. Some Christians believe the Mosaic Covenant exists only for Jews, as is his original chosen people, and some Christians want to be like us, so they try to keep these covenants as well. And that's where the Messianics come in.
More or less. And supersessionism is a core tenet of most Christian churches for the majority of their existence. And it's hard to ignore that many strains of Christianity, particularly Roman Catholicism, say that Jews are breaking the new covenant by keeping the Mosaic covenant. And that's a bad thing. They're basically saying we can't practice our religion because it's wrong.
Yeah, they're just saying like, hey, fuck you. But of course, Messianics are Protestant, and Protestant views on supersessionism very much more. We won't get into it here because it complicates things, and to be fair, I don't think me or Sam completely understand it enough to try and make sense of it or explain it to anybody else. And either way, it doesn't matter because Messianics don't believe in supersessionism.
I felt we still had to explain it, even though it's confusing. But the main thing is, even if you don't believe in supersessionism or any of its derivatives or anything like it, there's still no way for Jewish people to believe in Jesus and remain Jewish. You want to know why? Do you?
Do you?
Of course you do. You see, Judaism has a list of requirements the Messiah must fulfill.
First of all, he must be Jewish.
He must be a member of the tribe of Judah.
He must be a direct male descendant of King David and King Solomon.
He must gather the Jewish people from exile and return them to Israel.
He must rebuild the temple in Jerusalem.
He will rule at a time of world peace.
He will rule at a time when the Jewish people will observe God's commandments.
He will rule at a time when all people will come to acknowledge and serve one God.
And you want to know the strange thing? Jesus fulfilled literally 0 of these requirements. He did not pass that vibe check.
And in Judaism, the case for the Messiah isn't like the best effort or even a partial credit thing. The Messiah has to do everything on the list or it's a no-go. Now, not all Jews believe or teach that a Messiah is coming, like many Reformed congregations and all Reconstructionists. But that still eliminates Jesus and is a discussion for another time.
Put it on the list.
The very concept of a son of God goes against Jewish theology.
And even if divine parentage were a thing in Judaism, which again, it's not, it would still take Jesus out of the running for the Messiah, because one of the requirements, as we just said, is that he has to be descended from King David through his father, and that doesn't really work if, your dad is God.
And tribal affiliation doesn't pass down via adoption, and even if it did, Joseph couldn't pass it down due to a curse.
And even the fact that Jesus performed miracles causes him to be exempt from Messiah status. Like, just because he did witchcraft doesn't make him the Messiah.
This is really important to note because many Christians ask Jews how we cannot believe in Jesus as the Messiah when he performed these miracles. Jewish prophecy states the Messiah will need to accomplish 4 things. Rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem.
And not only was the second temple still around when Jesus was alive, he definitely did not build another.
Nope. 2, gather all Jews back to the land of Israel / redeem us from exile.
Let's skip that part. Let's not get into the controversy.
Yep. 3, usher in an era of world peace. End all hatred, oppression, suffering, and disease.
That's been going well.
Yeah, that's really...
Totally.
Yep. Spread universal knowledge of the God of Israel, which will unite humanity as one.
Obviously, not everyone is Jewish, nor is everyone Christian, so that was an epic fail. We won't go deeply into this, but what Judaism traditionally teaches and what most Orthodox sects teach is that, everyone will worship the one God of Israel. And the Messiah isn't going to go looking for converts. There's going to be like a mass epiphany.
We, and I use the royal we here, think that if the Messiah comes, God is going to tell everyone. He's just not going to give one person the knowledge and rely on that one to make everyone believe them.
Yeah, because that hasn't worked out so well in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Jonah literally, had to, you'd think that, I think if anyone's going to learn from a mistake, it would be God.
And there's other stuff to the whole Messiah thing, but either way, Jesus didn't do any of it. He went against the Torah. We don't teach about a second coming. He's dead. He's staying dead. And that means he's not the Messiah. We can't accept him because he doesn't fit into what our faith teaches, nor does he follow our values.
And it makes no sense for Messianics to somehow still practice Judaism when they ignore the basic tenets of the religion. The original leaders of Christianity purposely created the distinctions to separate themselves from Judaism. Seriously.
And it's not just what we believe the Messiah will do or be that separates Christianity and Judaism. I mean, as we've said before, Judaism isn't just Christianity minus Jesus. There's a lot of basic differences that make the two theologically incompatible. Judaism probably has more in common with Islam than Christianity when we're talking value systems. I mean, we both have similar dietary restrictions, for one thing.
Yep, and modesty.
Head coverings.
Head coverings. Christianity teaches about original sin and holds that all humans are born impure and have a proclivity to sin from birth. It also teaches that Jesus died for humanity's sins, and in many sects of Christianity, salvation is only available through a belief in Jesus.
And in Judaism, there's no original sin. Sure, Adam and Eve still ate from the tree of knowledge, but that sin doesn't make the rest of us guilty. Judaism teaches that people are born sinless and that people are just gonna sin because we're human and we have free will.
Yeah, in Judaism, sin is defined as breaking one of the 613 Jewish laws. And these aren't necessarily a reflection of a person's morality. Because again, everyone will mess up at one point or another. That's what being human is.
Yeah, and sins between people and God are considered less serious than the sins committed between two people. On our Day of Atonement, we can ask God for forgiveness for the sins we made towards him, but we also have to beg other people for our forgiveness. And my God, Yom Kippur is coming soon.
Don't bring it up. I had a fast this year. I didn't fast last year.
I can't do a total fast because my meds require me to eat a little bit with it.
Oh yeah, see, I can, as long as I don't drink alcohol, I can do whatever I need to do with my meds. I can only drink a little bit.
Yeah, I can. So I'll probably just eat a little bit,
Well, you're keeping the fast. It's within the spirit of the thing, you know? I didn't fast last year because my mental health was so bad.
Look,
Last year doesn't count. Last year doesn't count.
God totally understands why we didn't do much
I didn't
last
keep
year.
Passover for the first time in my life last year.
I tried keeping Passover I tried to keep Passover this year, but last year I was just like, Yeah, you know what?
Wash the wash.
We have one of the 10 plagues. God's gonna understand.
Yeah, God's chill with it. You do what you gotta do. And we went over this in one of our videos about Trisha Paytas, but you're under no obligation to forgive people, even if they ask for it. Likewise, Judaism doesn't have a traditional hell. If somebody sins during life and isn't forgiven or receives any kind of punishment while living, they're sent to a sort of hell for up to 11 months so they can repent, after which point they can move on. That goes for anyone Jewish or non-Jewish.
Again, it's kind of like the ending of The Good Place.
It is kind of like the ending of The Good Place. Olam haba, turning into like little, you walk through the tree thing.
Yes. And those who are truly evil or don't repent end up in Gehenna. Gehenna. God, my Hebrew's terrible. Forever, but that's rare. Most people aren't going to end up there. Only guys like Hitler and stuff.
Stalin.
Yeah. But, you know, there's not a huge focus on the afterlife in Judaism. It matters more how you act during life. You're not supposed to do good things because they'll get you into heaven.
You do good things because it's the right thing to do. We also don't have, like, saints.
I don't even really know what a saint is. Like, are they prophets? Do you worship them? I know that's in the Catholic Church keeps, like, body parts and objects from saints, and they're considered holy.
That's really gruesome.
And I don't really get it, and I've never really understood it.
Let me look it up. Turns out if you just Google saints, all you get is the football team. You gotta work on your SEO, Christians.
Yeah, but whatever saints are, we don't have that or anything like that. We haven't even had a prophet in, like, forever.
Yeah, and we could get into a lot of other stuff that's only tangentially related to Messianism, but we should probably skip it since Sam decided she didn't want to.
I can only take so much. I started getting ads from Messianic synagogues and Jews for Jesus in my YouTube videos. I didn't want to get Christian stuff too. It was just too much, Rachel. It was almost as bad as going through those Trisha Paytas videos. Oh my God, so many hours of my life lost.
I know. Hey, how about a little rant? That always makes me feel better. No more facts, just anger.
Yes. Okay. One argument us Jews hear over and over again is that Jesus was Jewish. And I have literally never understood this argument. So Jesus was Jewish, therefore Jews must accept him as the Messiah? Is that what that's supposed to mean? I don't get it. I don't get it. We've discussed that Jesus fulfills none of the obligations of the Jewish Messiah. And also there have been lots of Jewish people. There have even been a few Jewish people who claim to be the Messiah, mostly in Hasidic and Orthodox communities in modern times. There were probably a few in biblical times who also claim
Bar Kokhba.
Yeah. But, you know, they weren't widely accepted. They didn't get their own spin-offs.
No. Oh my God. Christianity is just a really successful Judaism spin-off. It's like Cheers. No, it's like Frasier. It's the more successful version of Happy Days.
And you don't see the rest of the Jewish community honoring those people as the Messiah. Just because a Jewish person claims to be the Messiah doesn't make them one. We have very strict rules. And besides that, Jesus isn't even a figure in Judaism. We don't talk about him. Some Jews may view him as a teacher, but he's not even on the level of a prophet. Mostly, people consider him an apostate. He turned his back on his people. He went against the teachings. And he just mostly doesn't come up in conversation. He's a non-entity. Like, we never discussed him once in Hebrew school.
Nope.
There are some Jewish texts that refer to a Yeshua, but it's very unlikely that refers to even the historical Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Yeshua is a name shared by so many Jewish figures. It literally translates into Josh. Like, do you know how many Jewish Joshes there are? There's a lot.
It's a lot.
And just because your religion also has a figure named Josh doesn't mean that our Joshes are the same guy. And even if they are the same person, we're not going to hold them in the same regard that you do, because it's a different religion. And even if somehow those passages do refer to the same Jesus, they still don't refer to him as the Messiah. And Christians have been killing us for 2,000 years because of this. At this point, why would I want to be Christian? I don't want to spend eternity with you fucks. I like being Jewish, but I don't get the train of thought that leads people to say, Jesus was Jewish. We're all aware of that fact. We're well aware. I'm Jewish. That doesn't make me the Messiah, nor does it mean all Jews should automatically do as I say. But I mean, if I could control every Jew.
Ooh. You'd make a plan to steal the menorah and the other artifacts back from the Vatican?
Yes. Priority numero uno. And then we can focus on making that space laser.
Jewish joke. I mean, if all Jews just followed one another because we were like Jewish, would we just like would it just be like a hot potato? Like, okay, now we're all following Gwyneth Paltrow. Now we're all following Deborah Messing. Now we're all following not Tay Diggs. Now we're all following David Diggs. Like,
Gwyneth Paltrow's Jewish?
Yeah, I think through her dad. Or maybe it's her mom. She's Jewish through at least one parent.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So is Goldie Hawn. And by extension, Kate Hudson. Maybe we should do a video about why there's so many Jews in the entertainment industry.
I mean, I was definitely planning on that eventually.
Yeah, it's on the list. Goddamn list. Now, this isn't unique to Messianics, but rather evangelicalism as a whole, but it's worth noting here anyway. A lot of evangelicals appropriate Jewish customs and holidays because it's what Jesus did. But here's the thing.
Well, Jesus did keep kosher because, that's what people did at the time.
Thing to do.
He didn't celebrate the holidays like Rosh Hashanah or Passover in the same way we do today. Mm-hmm. And so having a Seder to feel connected to Jesus doesn't make much sense since he never had a Seder.
At least not in the way that we think of them today.
He probably had some Passover dinner, but he didn't sit around reading from a Haggadah.
Yeah, he didn't have the Maxwell House coffee. He didn't have the mass-produced, you buy 12 for $50 Haggadot that you. That's an inside joke just for the Jews. You guys will get it. The modern day Seder evolved out of rabbinical Judaism practices, but rabbinical Judaism didn't exist in Jesus' time because this is prior to our exile from the Holy Land. He would have practiced Temple Judaism with a capital T, which often involved sacrifices as a part of worship.
Temple Judaism isn't practiced anymore. It hasn't been practiced since about 70 CE, when the Second Temple was destroyed. And, we literally just had a holiday commemorating that. And without the Temple in Judaism, we can't really make sacrifices because that was the only place sacrifices could take place. So we had to change our practices, and that became rabbinical Judaism. And so practicing Judaism in a way that wasn't even an inkling of an idea during Jesus's time to feel connected to Jesus doesn't really make sense.
Now, whether or not this is a matter that concerns Messianics is frankly complicated. Messianics actually reject rabbinical Judaism because they call it man-made, but still engage with a lot of rabbinic practices like Passover Seders, lighting the menorah, and they just make up their own rules willy-nilly, all crazy-like. They celebrate the holidays according to their own calendar and not the Jewish lunar calendar. These observations come from Tumblr user Sora Bakami, who was actually raised Messianic but converted to Judaism, and thus knows far more than we do about the subject. So, we'll be referencing this post.
Strong anti-rabbinic sentiment. This is one of the biggies, to the point that it is a setup for all my following points. Messianics, as a broad rule, hate rabbinic Judaism. They do not hold by the Mishnah or Gemara of the Talmuds, and they see rabbinic Judaism as a man-made religion, a subversion of God's real desires for them and for Jews. They are quite fanatical about it. They use phrases like Torah observant or Torah kosher. What that means is, I only observe what is written in the Torah. I don't care about not eating the hindquarters of a cow because of Yaakov's struggle with the angel. I don't care that my wine be only made by Jews. Those phrases basically mean, fuck your Talmud. Now, there are some exceptions to most of these. Some Messianics are properly observant by rabbinic standards and do study the Talmud, but it's so incredibly rare. It's like a unicorn. The Messianic movement, almost without exception, rejects the Mishnah and the Gemaras, which make up the Talmud. In short, these are oral and rabbinic commentary which date back thousands of years and existed during the time of Jesus in oral tradition. They would not be 100% solidified and written down for another 600 years. They also reject the entire rabbinic tradition which followed. Messianics rant about these being a deceptive, man-made religion. Rabbinic is used as an insult in these communities. They fancy themselves as the heirs of true Judaism, biblical Judaism, or even Torah Judaism. They keep Torah culture, ignoring rabbinic kashrut rules that existed even in the time of Jesus. They sometimes even keep holidays according to an observant calendar based on the new moons and barley harvest instead of the mathematical calendar that real Jews use. Rabbinic Jews, anyway. Not sure about Beta Israel and Karaite Jews, who are very much also real Jews. The truth is that Messianics actually practice dozens of Jewish rituals which come directly from rabbinic tradition. Lighting the menorah the way they do is from Rabbi Hillel. Kippot are rabbinic, so are the Passover Seders they lead. So almost all of the Judaism they appropriate. It's all very much double talk and ignorance. They appropriate rabbinic Judaism that Jesus would have never heard of and defend it by saying Jesus was Jewish, and then immediately bash and discredit rabbis and the Talmud, often with a strong smack of anti-Semitism. It will make your head spin. They're twisting the knife of cultural appropriation. Now, as we just said, there are some sects of Judaism, particularly the Karaites, who don't practice rabbinic Judaism, and they only practice Torah Judaism, what is written in the Torah. But Karaite Jews are valid Jews. They are not Messianics. They don't believe in Jesus. But Messianics will find any way to convince people, probably mostly themselves, that they are actually practicing Judaism while still worshiping Jesus.
Messianics are evangelical Christians, and they're appropriating our holidays no matter what they believe. These aren't your practices, nor were they the practices of your Messiah, so you have no claim to celebrate Jewish holidays at all. Asterisk, unless invited to by a Jewish friend or partner.
Also, don't make sacrifices in Jesus' name and then claim you're practicing Temple Judaism. I feel the need to make that a point, because I know at least one of you is thinking that you can do it. But I'm pretty sure that's sacrilegious to both Judaism and Christianity, because again, you can only sacrifice things in Judaism in the temple. We do not have a temple.
Yeah, I mean, probably. And also, like, the law, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to perform, like, ritual animal sacrifices in, like, the parking lot at a Denny's.
Jesus, or at least many of the stories about Jesus, go out of their way to paint Judaism in a bad light. Again, another topic for another video. But seriously, when the Christian Bible refers to Jews as the synagogue of Satan and claims events like that story of Jesus flipping over the money lender's table was the right thing, without understanding the historical context of why the money lenders were there in the first place, it's frustrating.
If you're Christian, you've probably heard the story of Jesus flipping over the tables of the bankers in the temple, and how they were being greedy or defaming God or some shit like that. But it isn't quite the case. The story took place during Passover, which at the time was a pilgrimage festival where all the Jews would go to the temple and offer an animal sacrifice to God. The Torah commanded that these animals be without blemish, and that's kind of hard to do if you're traveling.
So the Jews would sell their best animal at home and then buy another animal once they reached Jerusalem and sacrifice it. And the meat from the animals would go to feed the priests and the poor.
The infamous story about Jesus flipping the tables by necessity, A, intimates the Jews as the bad guys and corrupt without understanding or caring about the reality of what was happening, and B, associates Jewishness with greed and moneylending, both of which are highly anti-Semitic and frankly blatantly ignore the social, cultural, and historical realities of Second Temple Judaism. The Christian moral of the story is Jesus attacks corruption. The historical facts of what the attack on the temple actually meant would have had disastrous consequences. And just FYI, money changers gathered during the high holidays because some people from all over the Jewish world, A, needed to exchange currencies as pilgrims do, and this was the central place for everyone to go do that, and B, because they were paying appropriate taxes and donating money as needed. Also, surprise, the temple was a repository for currencies from all over the world and had a large treasury. Not only did these foreign coins have to be exchanged, but also ordinary deposits were often handled over the temple authorities for safe deposit in the temple treasury. Thus, Jerusalem became a sort of central bourse and exchange mart, and the temple vaults served as safe deposits, in which every type of coin was represented. The business of money exchange was carried out by the shulchani, exchange banker, who would change foreign coins into local currency and vice versa. People coming from distant countries would bring their money in large denominations rather than in cumbersome coins. Shulchanim in Jerusalem used to set up their tables in the outer court of the temple for the convenience of the numerous worshippers, especially those from foreign countries. Excavations from around the temple walls have uncovered storage or kiosks, some of which, it has been surmised, were occupied by money changers. The Mishnah states that on the 15th of Adar, every year, tables were set up in the provinces, or in Jerusalem, for the collection of the statutory annual half shekel, and on the 25th of Adar, they were set up at the temple itself. And this is where the moneylenders came in. Jews couldn't mint their own currency. The bankers worked as money exchangers, changing the different coins from the places the Jews were coming from into Roman coins. One Tumblr user, the library alcove, explained as such. So those people were not loan sharks or bankers. They were just there to provide an essential service for the 250,000 pilgrims who were coming to observe the festival. The corrupt intruders in that sanctum would have been the Roman tax collectors. It made taking Rome's taxes easier.
So basically, Jesus went up to these people set up in the outer court of the temple for the sake of accessible money changing for thousands of people coming from numerous countries, and he upturned them. People were flocking to the temple for a holy day of worship, and money changing was happening. So someone who bought in a dinar and came from another country or whatever could exchange it for shekels and be able to eat, pay for lodging during the holiday, and all around be able to afford basic necessities during a mass festival. And he ruined it. He overturned the tables of money changers who were providing a necessary service to people who were pilgrims during a massive holiday. We're talking 300 to 400,000 pilgrims who would need to exchange currency. He also drove out people selling doves for sacrifices, which were typically bought by the most poor, and especially women, for the purpose of sacrifice. And he tried to ban carrying merchandise and tried to halt commerce, which would have taken place in the court of Gentiles anyway. Every single claim of what he did in the New Testament has a historical ramification, according to what we know about how things worked in Second Temple Judaism. And all of those things point out it was a royally dick move. Christian evangelicals don't care if the logic is faulty or hypocritical. They don't or won't care about this story as a counterexample.
The reality is that without moral judgment, what Jesus did negatively impacted hundreds of thousands of people during one of the biggest holiday festivals in Jerusalem, and then put absolutely everyone in danger by trying to incite a rebellion. You can admire it, you can like it, you can appreciate a moral against corruption, but you can't rewrite history to say this wasn't a guy who was trying to enact some radical changes that had negative consequences for his fellow Jews. Asterisk, starvation, going hungry, going broke, or being unable to buy necessities. And death. In short, the New Testament spin on this story being a positive thing is inherently anti-Semitic, and if you presume Jesus actually existed, incorrect. Facts like this make you wonder why people thought these two religions could be appropriately combined in some way. I mean, I'd rather just have somebody honestly try to convert me to Christianity than Messianism. At least they're being honest with me and not trying to be sneaky.
Yeah, and Jews for Jesus is open, at least online, about the fact that they're there to proselytize. But Messianism as a whole basically exists as a way to trick people with Jewish heritage but aren't knowledgeable about it into worshiping Jesus. It's their whole focus.
It's notoriously hard to get Jews to convert. I mean, we had about 2,000 years to practice.
And I mean, it isn't just that Jesus is incompatible with our belief systems, but as we just discussed, it's the anti-Semitism that's baked into Christianity that also has a lot with us not wanting to convert. Sure, we resisted Hellenism and other pagan religions prior to Christianity.
But at least their religions weren't based specifically on defining themselves as explicitly non-Jewish. The church is anti-Semitic.
And this, isn't just a historical thing or a biblical thing. There's relatively modern instances of the church's anti-Semitism. For example, Jewish children were placed in the church's care during the Holocaust for their own safety. These children were forcibly converted to Christianity and adopted by Christian families. They were not returned to the Jewish community afterwards. And this is not just something that was done to the Jews, but also indigenous people like the Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. And there's a whole other story to be told about the church's history of stealing children in general, but Jewish children in this particular case. Plus, there's the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades.
There are European synagogues overtaken by Christians and converted into churches.
Missionaries not only being openly anti-Semitic, but also acting as a threat to indigenous religions and cultures.
The Catholic Church is in possession of many Jewish texts and artifacts that it refuses to give back to the Jewish community.
Like our menorah.
the whole concept of the wandering Jew.
And of course, there's also the blood libel, which we've previously discussed, and honestly, so much more. Jews even were often highly taxed more than other groups.
And Jews were kicked out of a lot of countries, like 100 in Europe. And they couldn't carry everything with them. So who do you think took possession of the money, the jewels, the pots, the pans, the houses?
Christians?
Yep. And it's been like that since very early on in the church's history. It's not a new phenomenon.
Anti-Semitism is the oldest form of bigotry.
And that's another video.
I guess. How many are on the list now?
You're the one making the list.
Right. Fuck.
Anything else?
The whole concept of evangelical Christian Zionists is pretty anti-Semitic in itself, since they want Israel to exist so all Jews can move there, and then Jesus can return. And many of them do believe that all Jews rather convert to Christianity or die.
And during my research, I also came across the concept of anti-Judaism. So while anti-Semitism is defined as a hostility to, prejudice, or discrimination against Jews as a people, and is thus a form of racism, anti-Judaism is a disagreement with the tenet of Judaism as a religion, which is held by Christians. But these Christians claim it has nothing to do with being against Jewish people, just their beliefs, which, just kind of sounds like a load of horse shit, like hate the sin, love the sinner kind of shit.
Ugh. To me, it just sounds like another way of being anti-Semitic, but with more steps. And because of this history of anti-Semitism that began with the first Christians purposely separating themselves from Judaism, and that literally haven't followed Jewish traditions for millennia. Wanting to practice Jewish customs now kind of comes across as suspect to me. What are you hoping to get out of it?
It's basically fetishization. You don't see them appropriating other Abrahamic traditions. For some reason, Christians only want to appropriate Judaism, never Islam or Druze or Rastafarian or Baha'i. They say it's because Christianity comes from Judaism, so Christianity can take whatever they want. Despite, once again, their first major thing their religion did was to distinguish itself from Judaism, and then they tried to kill us. Christianity was built on anti-Semitism, and this weird fetishization is just another form of it.
Messianism is harmful to Jews. I really don't know how to expand on this idea. Messianism is a religion that basically exists to dispute and appropriate Judaism. That isn't to say that all relatively modern religions aren't valid, but Messianism just isn't.
It exists to trick uneducated Jews into being saved. The rest are just evangelical Christians and these evangelicals want to rid the world of Judaism and also every other religion so that everyone worships Jesus. Any sign of resistance is taken as a personal offense. Messianism is just Christianity with some extra persecution complex.
Messianics are not persecuted and have never been persecuted. And in fact, they get defensive and defended because they're just practicing their beliefs.
However, some Messianics have been targeted because some anti-Semite thought they were actually Jews, which is pretty funny to me because it's usually just graffiti or vandalism. No one's hurt, and I think the mistake is funny.
Well, I mean, any kind of anti-Semitism is really gross, but, they can start saying they're persecuted when it's, commonplace for them to have metal detectors and security guards as safety measures. Really, I just don't have that much sympathy for them. You want to be Jewish, better get used to the idea of the police sitting outside your synagogue on every major holiday.
And if they weren't harming actual Jewish people, I, wouldn't have an issue with Messianics. But they perpetuate false ideas about the Jewish religion, how Jewish people worship, and probably have confused more than a few goyim when they meet an actual Jewish person for the first time. Messianism erases our Jewish heritage and culture. If they say we can worship Jesus and still be Jewish, people are going to think that actual Jews are being ridiculous for just not believing in Jesus because Messianics have shown we can do that, and then we can stop being persecuted.
It's a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. I mean, I bet if every Jewish person did convert to Messianism, it wouldn't be considered Christianity anymore.
Shh, don't give them legitimacy. But also, they're never going to get every Jew to convert. I remember when I first heard about Messianism when I was I think 11. I thought it was literally the most ridiculous thing. I'm not the most educated about Judaism, and I was certainly less knowledgeable then, but I was like, that's not how Judaism works.
Just leave us alone. Religion and faith are highly personal, but that doesn't mean you can just take whatever beliefs from random faiths and just combine them together whatever you want. Especially if you're part of one of the majority groups and you're taking beliefs from minority faith or culture that your group has persecuted.
If you want to be Jewish, we'll welcome you with open arms, but leave your Jesus at the door.
When converting to another religion, well, asking that you follow certain rules isn't gatekeeping. That's just not how it works. Like, I'm sorry, there are rules. I didn't make them up. Go yell at God like a real Jewish person.
No other religions go around telling Jews they can accept other prophets or messiahs and still be Jewish. Muslims don't tell us we can accept Muhammad and be Jewish. If you accept Muhammad as the Messiah, then generally speaking, you're Muslim.
I never hear about Christians telling Muslims that it's possible to accept Jesus as the Messiah and still be Muslim. Oh wait, it's because for most Christians, Islam is so alien that they wouldn't even think of it. They just consider Judaism to be inferior, not alien and blasphemous like Islam. Jewish acceptance is often also used as a shield to defend conservatives from accusations of Islamophobia.
Also, there are a lot of times when Christians, including Messianics, decide to adopt Jewish practices, and they talk about them as if these practices stopped thousands of years ago, but last time I checked, we're still here. They don't exist for Christians to feel closer to their Messiah.
I know this video may seem to focus unduly on the differences between Judaism and Christianity, and that's because that's what it's for.
And we're being repetitive in order to make our point. The belief systems and theologies don't mix. It's not like Hoodoo or Latin American Catholicism, where the people of those countries combine Christianity with their own indigenous beliefs so they can keep some part of their culture alive.
It's not cultural appropriation if a minority group adopts or assimilates someone into the majority culture.
It's not hypocritical. And honestly, if a Jewish person wants to convert to Christianity, like genuinely wants to convert and isn't being forced, sure, I'm gonna feel a little sad even though I'm not affected. That's because there's a lot of cultural baggage around that. But I'm happy that they found a belief system that suits them.
But we just don't want to deal with people trying to convince us to accept Jesus. It's just like, if I had $1 for every moment I've had wasted of my time with people trying to talk to me about Jesus, oh Sam,
I would be a rich man.
I would have that Uncle Soros money they're always talking about.
If I were a rich man, la da 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 da. If I had all the money. Wait, that's Gwen Stefani. I had all the money in the world. If I was well. It's been 2,000 years. If we thought Jesus was the Messiah, we would have converted by now. We're not just being stubborn.
You're a little stubborn.
Yeah. I guess you do have to be kind of stubborn to hold out against another belief system for 2,000 years, but seriously, leave us alone!
I keep having conversations that go like this. Christian, you're calling my faith anti-Semitic. Me, no I'm not. I'm saying that you can practice your faith without doing anti-Semitic things. Christian, I literally can't though. Me, well okay, I guess your faith is anti-Semitic then.
Just stop proselytizing altogether, really, especially in countries and areas where indigenous beliefs are the norm. Don't.
Just stop.
I know this probably doesn't matter since I doubt any proselytizers actually watch this channel, but if you are, stop.
Seriously, if you're not Jewish, we would also appreciate you calling out these motherfuckers. We're sick of doing it alone. And if you are Messianic and watching this channel, I'm sorry you were lied to. What you're practicing isn't Judaism and has never been.
And if you're evangelical and have been appropriating Jewish holidays, stop. They aren't for you. There's some sources about Judaism for everyone down in the description below.
And sources about Messianic Jews. Evangelical Christians. Here's the thing. If you really feel like you connect with Jewish culture and you have a strong belief in Jesus, you've got to pick. Because we are very welcoming to converts within reason. If you still believe in Jesus, you can't convert to Judaism. But if you feel really strongly that you want to be Jewish, there are ways to go about that without being sacrilegious to our faith.
And we would love to continue this dialogue. There's a lot of topics we weren't able to touch on or give as much focus, like the Black Hebrew Israelites, or how Judeo-Christianity literally isn't a thing.
There's a lot of stuff. But then this video much longer than it already is.
And the script was already like 32 pages. I had so many notes. But, you know, we had to make this a reasonable length.
You just couldn't do it anymore.
Look, it's not like I was willing to make a 5-hour video on
Yeah, this isn't ContraPoints.
Oh no, I'm talking about JXC.
I've never heard of them.
They did a video, like a 2-hour video on why modern Doctor Who is terrible.
Oh.
And then they did a 5-hour video defending their view.
That's hilarious. I gotta watch that.
And I'm just like,
The thesaurus.
Yeah, we're working on a very long video, but that's gonna take
Working
some
on
time.
like 5 very long videos, yeah. Well, this was a really hard one to get through, but thanks for listening. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you next time. I can't believe I made this like 30-something pages long.
Honestly, I can't believe it either, but I also can.
Unique New York, unique New York, unique New York, unique New York. Tina and Tony bought 10 teeny tiny tuna tacos to town.
Wow, that's very good. Peter Piper pecked a peck of record peppers.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?
Man, you really are a theater kid.